What's up and welcome to another video. My name is Nick. Today we are talking about Lightroom, why every photographer should be using Lightroom, and I'm going to show you the basic functionalities of Lightroom. First though, the intro. All right, welcome back. Real quick, if you haven't noticed, I shaved my face. It's weird. It feels awkward, like that big scraggly, like gross beard is not here. And then like I got a haircut. I'm trying to keep, I'm trying to stay clean, right, for my YouTube friends and subscribers. And so if you think it was a smart choice to shave off the old facial hair, cut it off. I didn't shave it, but if it was a smart choice to cut it off, let me know in the comments below. And if you're not subscribed to this channel, subscribe. We've gained like 50 subscribers, 60 subscribers in the past few days, which is excellent for us because we're a smaller channel and we are growing quickly. If you're not already aware, we did a $30 Amazon gift card giveaway yesterday, and the next one will be when we hit 400 subscribers. We'll be giving a $40 Amazon gift card away to one lucky winner. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you know when it's time to put in your comment for entry for that Amazon gift card. So if you're new to the channel, I just want to make you aware that my channel talks mainly about photography and kind of tips, tricks, tutorials, and tools and all that stuff for photography geared towards beginners. I also talk about entrepreneurship in general, as I am an entrepreneur and I love it, and it's like my passion. So there's that. And then sometimes I talk about cryptocurrency because I like that stuff. If you're into one of those three things, but not all three, I have playlists set aside that you can like check out or whatever. Anyways, let's get into this. Why every photographer should be using Lightroom. Simply put, photography, especially if you're trying to get into it professionally, is a very, very saturated and competitive market. You have to have really good photos if you're going to make it as a professional photographer. If you're an amateur or just a hobbyist, I believe that you should still be using Lightroom because, you know, you're trying to put out your best work. If you're into a hobby, right? If you're into restoring classic cars, you wouldn't restore a classic car to a junk status or like just a so-so status. You would put out your best work because it's your hobby, it's your passion. The same goes with photography. If it's your passion, if it's your hobby, if it's your profession, if you're just getting into it, you need to be using Lightroom at least. Now, some people say, man, Nick, Lightroom is expensive. It's 150 bucks or 200, but whatever they're charging for it. I use Adobe Lightroom Creative Cloud. That's Adobe Lightroom CC. And it's 10 bucks a month, or you can pay all up front, 120. And honestly, like I held off for a couple years on this because I thought for sure I was going to hate it. And I didn't want my photos being stored to the cloud. Then I realized and I learned that you can actually do this without uploading your photos to the cloud. You can save them on your computer. You can work them. It's just that if you want to access your photos from anywhere in the world on any computer that has Lightroom CC on it, then you would need to have it in the cloud. But I don't, and so I don't have it in the cloud. I don't need to access it anywhere else, whatever. It's a $10 subscription per month. Most people spend more on coffee, you know, in 1 week than $10 a month. It's really great. Once I got it, I realized, man, I've been missing this. And, you know, it updates with any new tools or preferences that they put out. It's always updating. And so you always have the cutting edge tool. All right, so let's jump into my computer now. Here we are on the library page. And the first thing you would do after you have downloaded the photos to your computer hard drive or your external hard drive, and you've organized them in a folder and you have them safely secured to your computer, you would go to import. It'll bring up an import box. You would find from whatever hard drive you've saved them to, you would locate them. In my instance, I've already got these photos imported because the photos have already been done. I shot these photos last summer and they are already in my computer. The first thing I do whenever I upload my photos is I keep all of my photos, because you never know what you're going to want later on. Even this blurry one right here, who knows what I might want something like that for in the future. So the first thing I do after I have imported them is I go through them just using my left and right arrow key, and we can actually probably make these a little bit smaller, decrease grid size. There we go. So I go through and I mark them by stars. So this one that is highlighted right here, this is, I marked it a 3-star. Now this, basically a 3-star is just going to be, this is a photo I'm going to use, all right? A 1-star would be like an extreme backup if I'm really lacking in photos. A 2-star, a little bit. I mean, I just use 1, 3, or 5. If a photo is a 5, it's definitely like a killer shot. You know, I want to use it for my Instagram grid, or I want to use it for my website. 3 stars are generally like, this is what the couple's going to get. These are good photos. We're going to edit these. So I've already gone through and chosen the photos that I'm going to use. They're 3-starred. Once you have them, now there's 569 photos. Once you have them starred, you'll go over here to filter and you will choose rated, and then you'll click 3 stars. I always like to do rated is equal to 3 stars, and that way I only get my 3 stars and I know exactly what I'm working with. I have 87 photos. So kind of scrolling through some of these, now let's make the grid size a little bit bigger. These are good, but they are not finished, right? And that's what we want to give the client, a finished product. Whether you're professional, whether you're just starting out, whether you're doing newborn pictures for your daughter-in-law who just had their, you know, their first baby, you always want to give a finished product. Don't ever, I repeat, don't ever, never, ever pull photos straight out of your camera and just give them to somebody. That is really, how do you say it nicely? That is, it's just lazy. Okay, I don't mean to say that rudely. I hope that doesn't come across rude, but it is just lazy to just hand out photos that have not been finished, right? So with these photos, I have finished these, and then I went and reset all of them for the purpose of this video. Now this one right here that is on, let's see, I feel like the edit didn't reset on this. So when you're ready to edit, after you have all your stars picked and you have applied your custom filter to draw those photos out that you're going to be editing, you'll go up here to the Develop tab, you'll move over, and this is where we're going to be focusing for our editing. A quick side note, one thing I like to do whenever I get all of my photos imported is I will make a collection. And you can do this after you've starred or before you've starred. You just simply hit the plus sign here, create collection, name it whatever you want. I already have a collection set for this engagement session. And then you would click create, it'll show up. I like to date mine and then put the name, and then whether it's an engagement or a wedding or family portrait, whatever. And then you just simply click on your photos, select them all. On Mac, that's Command A, selects them all, and then you can just drop them into your collection folder. This is this one right here. I shot this July 30th, 2017. It's the Bunch engagement. His last name is Bunch, and so this is the Bunch engagement. We deselect, go back to our very first photo, and then it's pretty simple from here. You simply go down and edit from top to bottom on your panels. It's very important that you do this. For a long time, I didn't know this, and when I actually heard about it, I had a hard time believing until I heard an Adobe, what they call an Adobe evangelist or something, whatever. it's an Adobe worker, and they were talking about you need to edit from the top panel to the bottom with one exception. And I tweaked this a little bit to my own use because I know the look that I'm trying to get. But just for basics, you're going to start from the top and work your way down. You're going to start with your white balance, then your exposure, then your contrast, then your highlights, shadows, whites, blacks, clarity, vibrant, saturation, whatever, and then your curves, and then any, you know, whatever else you want to do, and then sharpening, and then noise reduction. You want to do all of these things first. If you do them out of order, it's going to cause the image to look different depending on what steps you take first. The one thing that I do, I have this basic start preset that I made. All this does is down here in lens correction, it enables profile correction. So I will hit this, and this will set the image to what it should look like with the lens that I photographed with. So I'll hit that. It takes away the vignetting, because vignetting is rarely good, right? Vignetting is rarely a good thing, so you don't really want vignetting. Let me click that off. You see how dark it gets, and you know, maybe you could use that, but I don't like it. Take it off, and it causes the image to flatten the way it should, it look the way it's supposed to with that lens. And then with that basic start, it also, and here's where I kind of go out of order, it sets my clarity up a little bit, so it sharpens and clarifies the image just a tad. And when it does that, it makes the shadows a bit darker. So I'll show you, I mean, you almost can't see it, but it's there. So we'll hit that basic start. There it is, it's done it. It set the clarity +10, it set contrast +10, it sharpened it to 50. I've been using Lightroom for 6 years, and so I've kind of learned like what I can get away with and what I can't. From here on out, after I hit that basic start that I have, now I will go through and I will edit from top to bottom on my panels. So the first thing you want to do is your white balance, and this is all subjective to what you want it to be. The image is really cool right now. You can see in our histogram up here, the highlights are really blown out. There's very little in our blacks. Our mid-range is pretty flat. And ideally, you want to have a nice bell curve to start with, and we don't have that. So this is a difficult image to work with here. But the reason I chose this image is because I like the composition. I like how they're smaller in the center of the frame. I love how these elephant ear plants are kind of really close and out of focus. They look really nice. And you got this water pathway in the beginning. This was shot with an 85mm 1.4 at ISO 125. It was like evening time, I want to say, or like afternoon. I think it was afternoon, around 4 o'clock or so in the summer. So the sun was still kind of bright. And then you could just start working with it from here. First thing is to get our white balance corrected, right? We're shooting in the summertime. We're trying to get that afternoon, evening look, so we want more golden light. I like to just see what auto gives right off the bat. Oftentimes it does not work. Sometimes it does. This is way too gold for me. It's 7,500 temperature. That is way too warm. And so I'll probably back it off just a touch, like, I don't know, 5,500. And I think I like that. It's still really bright, so we're not going to see really the warmth of everything until we pull some of these highlights and exposure down. So let's go down to the exposure, and we'll just, I like to hover my cursor over whatever slider I'm working with, and then just use my up and down arrows to kind of find the sweet spot that I'm looking for. So I'm pulling it down. I'm getting some blue back from the sky. I'm getting some skin tones back, but you also see the shadows are getting really dark, and we'll adjust those in a minute. Next thing is contrast. The contrast is fine, +10. It's not too extreme. One thing you want to really stay away from is like +70 contrast. Like, that's terrible. Nothing about this is good. There's nothing good about this for my taste. Perhaps you're a person that likes overly contrasted photos. That's cool. Even +10 is is pushing it, I feel like, for me. The next thing is your highlights. So I'm just going to bring these down just a touch. Well, minus 28. Okay, that's a touch. And then the shadows are what's going to bring the image back up a tad without losing the sky, without losing definition. And so it's kind of like you play around with it just a little bit until you get something that's not too contrasty, but also not too gray and like losing its punch, I guess. I think right here is good. Your whites. Now, the best way to figure out what your whites are, or what they should be, is you're going to hold down your option button on your Mac. I'm not sure what it is for PCs. I don't own a PC. I haven't used a PC in years, so sorry. Hold down your option button and then click on your slider. And you want to move the slider ever so gently until you start seeing some white pop up. So right there, that's where our white starts to pop. You want to have just one speck of white. You see up here how everything has started to shift slightly towards the middle. So now we're not blown out. That's the only part on his collar right here that is blown out in any way. Man, look how crisp that is. And then let's slide down to our blacks. Blacks are going to be the same thing. You want to find the black point. So you want to hold down your option key and then click your slider and start moving it until you see some blacks. Now you're going to see them in the color of burgundy and then blue, and then you'll start to see your black. That's what you want. So the black is right here between their two bodies, behind their hands. This is our black point. And I will click that so you can see it. Okay, right there between his legs. That's your black point. So now you've established a black point and you've established a white point, and then all the colors are ranged in between. Whereas if you had something that was too contrasted or too shadowy, you might have tons of black, and then your whole histogram on this side up here would just be totally off balance with darkness. So let's go down. The clarity, we set that at +10 before. And then vibrance, this photo, I like my photos not to be so heavily saturated with color. So sometimes something like this, where it's really saturated just naturally, I might move it down to like -5, -10. I'm gonna do -5. Tonal curve, this, there's a lot you can do with this. This up here, upper right-hand corner is your whites, or your brightest point, and down here is your blacks, or your lowest point. And so you can set markers in between. You can twist this. You can twist this curve here however you want. And like, if you don't know too much about what you're doing with it, you can cause the image to look really cartoonish as you put more points and move them. It's just like a joint. It will cause the others to move, and then you see some like really weird, funky stuff start to happen. So, word of caution: if you don't know what you're doing with it, practice, but don't experiment with your curves with actual clients, like photos. If someone's paying you, now there's some photos that I'll do where I like to grab the black point and just draw it up just a tad. And so what this does is it takes any black point, like the darkest black point in an image, and it makes it gray. And so it adjusts your black point from being pure black to a dark gray. And so that adds for kind of a cool like haze overlay sort of thing. Not going to do it on this photo because I like the richness that the black point is giving. So we're leaving that there. All right, moving down the panels, you have your HSL. This is hue, saturation, and luminance. Depending on how bright things are in your image and how light or dark or saturated or adjust, the hue that you want to adjust, this is the panel where it'll take place. And so your hue is basically anything that's red. If you want to move it more towards a magenta or more towards an orange, that's where you do this. There is this flower or something here that is sort of a red, but more kind of an orange. If you grab this hue, you can change that. If they want to have, if you want to have completely orange, then you can make it orange. Or if you want to go like magenta, really saturated, you can do that. I do not generally mess with this. I like my photos to look true what really happened. I don't do a lot of weird experimental stuff. Let's say the blue dress and the blue pants, they want to make them a little bit lighter, a little bit more of an aqua. So you just go down to your blue slider, slide that down. You see I'm just changing the color of the blue. Now, going with that, it also changes the sky. So you have to be careful with what you're doing, but that is sort of an option there. Okay, so this green is a little bit too green, and you want to go more of like an aqua color or something, or like, I don't know. Or you want to make it look like it's fall time. You would just kill all of the plants in the image. Now that you've changed this to sort of an orangish yellow, now you can kill them more. And now we've made it to like late fall. And then you can take those late fall plants and you could just like sort of kill them even more. And then you got their skin all screwed up. But you get the idea. I'm going to back out of these things and leave our image as it is. Saturation, simply put, whatever your color is, you can adjust the saturation. If I don't like that much green in my plants, I can just pull that saturation down a bit to kind of get it really low. Or you can pop it up and just make it totally unrealistically green. Next is luminance. Luminance, basically what this is you are adjusting the brightness or the luminance in a specific color. You're targeting specific colors to brighten or darken them. So one thing I like to do, the sky. The sky is so bright, it's beautiful, but you can pull that luminance down just a bit. Look at that. Makes the sky so unrealistically blue. You don't want to go that much. Maybe just a touch like that. Looks nice. And then the green. These plants are way too bright. The sun is just burning them for me. So I just kind of pull that down. Well, that was a bit much. Just like that right there. And then their skin tone falls sort of in the orange range. And so maybe we just kind of like pull their skin tone down just a tad, like -10. It's barely anything, but whenever you compare it as the photographer to what the original was like really close, not perfect. This makes it a little bit closer to perfect. No image is perfect. Side note here, as photographers, you will never, ever, 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 ever get your perfect image. We are always in search of the perfect image. It is, it's unattainable, okay? But the reason we're doing this is because we want to attain the perfect image. Down here, split toning. Oh, real quick, color, you can like lay over a certain color on the entire image if you want to. Yeah, whatever. Black and white, you can adjust. This is cool because you can adjust the tonal range of your black and white photo according to the colors. So your greens are really dark, but you can lighten those greens, the tonal range of those greens, if you choose. Lighten their skin more, and like just kind of adjust the tonal range of everything. The blues, okay. We are not going to do that because we like colorful images. Black and white images are good too, and they have their place, but I like turning out colorful images. So then scrolling down, split toning. I don't do anything with split toning. It's more of like, I don't know. It's a certain kind of style of editing. It's not mine. Basically what you would do is you would assign a color value, I guess, to your highlights and your shadows. So our highlights would be the shirts, the skin, anything that's brightly lit, anything that's high up here in this second range. So in your histogram, you have blacks, shadows, mid-tone, highlights, and whites. And so your highlights are going to fall in this range right here, and you would assign a color to that. So let's say like you want to go with, let's pick the color off of this actual thing here. Let's do green, which is insane. And you can adjust the saturation of that. So you can pull that down to where it's just sort of like a slight overlay for your highlights. And then for our shadows, we want yellow. Awesome. And then pull that down too. So you kind of add like a custom sort of overlay to your image. I don't like working with them. Some people love them. Good for them. Not for me. Your detail. Sharpening. Basically, I only use the amount slider. I don't want to get too carried away with sharpening because an overly sharpened image is like an overly contrasted image. It just doesn't look right. Doesn't look good. You want things to be crisp, but you don't want them to be overly sharp. In this, you can see definition in the couple's face. It looks really good. You know, you can see clear lines. The worst thing that we could do is click this sharpening, especially up here into the red zone, and then it's just like, it's just too crunchy, right? Too crunchy. So it's almost like less is more, but you still need some. Radius, detail. This is just fine tuning the sharpness aspect. Noise reduction, we don't need any noise reduction. It's definitely a must whenever you're shooting at higher ISOs, like 4,000 and above. Even 4,000 you may not need it. 6,500 and above definitely need some noise reduction. With my cameras, I use the Nikon D600 series, and so I use noise reduction then. Right here, they don't need any noise reduction. You can see there's no noise in this image at all, so we don't give them any reduction. Lens correction, this is the profile corrections. You would choose your camera, you would choose your lens here, and you can choose any lens. So if I wanted to choose a 14mm 2.8, I could. It will definitely screw the image up, but you can see how it kind of makes like a weird, like, fish thing. I don't know. That's that. And then vignetting, don't know why you would, don't know why you'd want to, but if that's something that floats your boat, put it, or you can go worse and go the other way. And I don't. Okay. Good. So we are back to our great image. Now, if you wanted to add grain and you say you like sort of the grainy film camera look, you could do that. Add some grain in there. Not for me. Sometimes I'll do that with like black and white photos that I'm trying to specifically make them look old, but not for me. This is basically your camera calibration. I do not mess with this. I leave this as the standard process and the standard profile, so leave that alone. Now, so we have our finished image. This is finished editing as far as color and brightness and contrast and all that goes, but there are a few other things we can do up here in this sort of this bar here. You know, we could crop our image because if we want to get closer to the couple, right? What I use this is to straighten the image, and this image is perfectly straight, shot in camera. And so what you would do is you just click outside of the crop box, and you can use these guidelines to find a horizontal edge. So for instance, that little wall that's behind their legs is perfectly straight, and my guideline on that is straight on there. So that's good. I use the clone and healing brush from time to time if I see something that can quickly be moved out of the image without leaving a spot. Now sometimes like more intricate, in-depth editing needs to take place in Photoshop, but for just beginning, this is perfectly legitimate. And this is great for blemishes, you know, like pimples or I don't know, stitches or whatever you're trying to take out of an image that can be pulled out fairly easily. Spot removal tool is great for that. Red eye correction, I don't use that. As long as you are not taking photos with your pop-up flash or your speed light directly face on, you shouldn't have to worry about red eye corrections. All right, so the graduated filter and the radial filter, I don't work with much, if at all, so don't really have much to say on those. This tool, the adjustment brush, is a favorite of mine. Now, I like this because it kind of gives me, I don't know, some like kind of creativeness that's sometimes cool and sometimes cheesy, and sometimes I overdo it, and sometimes I hit the nail on the head. And so what you can do with this is you can intricately edit something and adjust just whatever you paint on here. So for instance, let's go with exposure. And this guy is, let's say he's too bright, okay? And so the inner circle is where it's getting 100% focus of this tool, and between the inner circle and the outer circle is a feather. So here we painted this. Now we painted this, and we can now adjust what we painted with the exposure. You can see I'm like way too bright, darken it too much. Like, you can just minutely adjust certain things. I'm going to, there you go, I took that off. One area that I like to work with this tool is I downloaded these sun flare brushes from the internet for free. Some guy had the download. I popped it into Lightroom. If you're interested in seeing how you can download presets or download brush templates and then put them into Lightroom, I'll make a video about that if you're interested. Comment below and let me know. I like to use sun flare medium. I like to make sure it's really warm, so I'll make that exceptionally warm. And then the exposure is sort of set on a medium there. And what you can do here is make a huge, huge brush. And then, especially if you have the sun behind the couple, you can add sort of like a warm golden light. Now, it doesn't look good in this photo because it does not work well with where the sun is actually hitting them. So we're looking at the photo like this. The sun is actually over here, and I'm applying as if the sun was right here. So that doesn't make sense for this particular image, but there are other images where it does work. So overall, that is a basic tutorial of the adjustment panels and how to get started in Lightroom. This image, let's call this image finished. We go to the next image that is similar to that first one, and we say, okay, they're both in the same place. They're both taking in the same lighting with the same settings. Nothing's changed. It's still 1/4000th of a second at 1.4, ISO 125 with the 85mm. Both of those things are the same. All things equal, all you have to do to edit the next photo is hold down your shift button, click the next photo, remain on your first photo because this is where you're drawing your information from. You're going to hit sync. You hit that synchronize. It applies everything, and then when you go over to your next image, it is the same. If you look at the histogram up here, when I switch back and forth, it is very, very close. Not 100%, but it's very close. You see that blue spike there where we're kind of running out of information, and then you have the slight hump to that, to the left of that in sort of like the mid to highs. Yeah, pretty close. So these are two images that I would call done. And remember, these are not mind-blowing, earth-shattering images. These are really good, finished, edited images for the couple to enjoy. There's several more photos. If this is something that interests you guys, let me know in the comments if you would like me to edit more photos from this session so you can see we shot in the beach. Now, where I said vignetting is not a good thing, I do like sort of this darkness in the sand as they're walking away with the sun behind them. Here's a good example. Let's say we edit through all of our panels and you want to add that sunlight. Let's go for a sun flare strong. I would just tap right here where the sun is kind of coming through and sort of brush around, and you kind of get that like ethereal glow of the sun kind of washing over them. I love that. So that is basically it. If you guys like this tutorial, if you like this this sort of teaching video, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the thumbs up if you like the video, and then turn on your bell notifications. As you know, we are giving away prizes for every milestone that we hit with subscribers. So we just hit 300 subscribers this week, and we gave away a $30 Amazon gift card. And then our next giveaway is when we hit 400 subscribers, and we'll give away a $40 Amazon gift card. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe, turn on bell notifications, and I will see you guys tomorrow.